Greetings, chosen ones, my beloved people of purpose, destiny, and divine assignment. Let me ask you a question that might shake you to your core. If God opened the windows of heaven and poured out a blessing today, could your wall, it even handle it, or would it leak it through disorder, delay, and distraction? This is not another motivational message. This is divine confrontation, because some of you are not broke. You're just buried beneath poor habits, emotional spending, and unsubmitted vision. This is not about hype. This is about heaven's economy breaking into your life. You've shouted for breakthrough. You've danced for favor. But now, it's time to be transformed by truth. Your breakthrough is not waiting on a miracle. It's waiting on your maturity. So lean in, get your journal, and open your heart. What you're about to hear is not just encouragement, it's alignment for abundance. If you're ready for chains to break in your bank account and vision to rise in your finances, this word is for you. Fire like, share, and subscribe, because your next level doesn't need more hype. It needs this truth. Breakthrough does not begin in your pocket. It begins in your head. Many people are chasing more money, more income, and more opportunities, yet their thinking is stuck in poverty, lack, and survival. What is happening in your wall? It is simply a mirror of what's going on in your mind. The first principle of financial breakthrough is not earning, it is transforming. Let me take you back to a story that is often skipped over. It's the story of the widow in 2 Kings 4. She ran to the prophet Elisha, saying her husband was dead and the creditors were coming to take her sons. She cried for a financial miracle, but the prophet didn't hand her money. Instead, he asked a question that revealed a principle. What do you have in your house? The question wasn't about her house. It was about her mindset. She had something, but she couldn't see it. Her breakthrough didn't come from outside. It came from recognizing what she already had inside. This is the reality many people ignore. We pray for money, but don't change our thoughts. We want overflow, but still think in scarcity. We attend motivational seminars hoping for magic, but our habits and internal belief systems remain unchanged. That's not breakthrough, that's delay. A poverty mindset doesn't mean you're broke. It means you think like someone who will always be broke. You believe resources are limited. You doubt your value. You assume increase is for others, but not you. That mindset paralyzes you even when opportunity knocks. That's why some people win the lottery and still end up in debt. The money changed, but the mind did not. Financial breakthrough requires a transformation of how you see work, wealth, time, and opportunity. Romans 12:2 says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." The word transformed in the Greek is metamorpho, which is where we get the word metamorphosis, a complete, irreversible change. You don't just need motivation, you need a metamorphosis. Consider the story of Sarah, a single mother from Atlanta who struggled for years on minimum wage. She had 3 jobs but was always in debt. She lived in fear of bills. One day, she heard someone say, "What you believe about money determines how you manage it." It hit her like lightning. She began reading financial books, listening to biblical teachings on stewardship, and studying successful people, not to imitate them, but to renew her mind. In 1 year, she didn't just make more money. She started a side business, paid off credit card debt, and developed a vision for her children's future. What changed? Her mindset. Her income followed her identity shift. Breakthrough is not external, it is internal. Your wall, it doesn't change until your mind does, and that is why this is not motivation. This is not about a quick pump-up message to make you feel better for a day. This is about positioning your mind to break free from financial bondage permanently. Think about it. Why did God speak so much about the mind? Why did Jesus say, "According to your faith be it unto you"? Because your thinking limits your receiving. Your internal ceiling becomes your external limitation. You can only receive at the level your mind is prepared to hold. That's why the greatest thing you can invest in is not just stocks, real estate, or business. It is wisdom. Proverbs 4:7 says, "Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom." You can't keep what you don't understand. A person who lacks wisdom will waste wealth even if it comes suddenly. And without wisdom, you become a consumer instead of a steward. So what does this mean for you? It means your breakthrough begins when you stop asking, "When will I get more money?" and start asking, "How can I think like someone who manages wealth with honor?" Shift from thinking like a consumer to thinking like a creator. From surviving to stewarding, from begging to building. Breakthrough is not a lottery. It's a mindset. You may not be responsible for how you were raised or what you were taught, but you are responsible for what you choose to believe from this moment forward. You are not cursed, you are not behind, but you will stay stuck if you don't renew your thinking. If you've been praying for increase, but haven't examined your beliefs about money, you may be unknowingly resisting what you're asking for. Examine your language, pay attention to your self-talk. Do you say, "I can't afford that," or "How can I afford that?" One shuts down the mind, the other opens a door. Until you shift your mindset, more money will only magnify your dysfunction. But when your mind is aligned with truth, money becomes a tool, not a trap. That is where your breakthrough begins. Breakthrough for your wall. It will never come from salary alone. That's a trap society has sold to generations, convincing people that a paycheck is the highest form of provision. But heaven doesn't operate by salary. It operates by seed. Until you understand the principle of seed, you will confuse income with increase and mistake survival for success. A salary is limited. It's based on hours, contracts, and conditions. Seed, however, is unlimited. It's based on laws, faith, and divine order. God never gave man money in the Garden of Eden. He gave him seed because seed carries potential, not just provision. When you understand this, you will stop chasing money and start identifying your seed. Let me explain this with a story from Genesis 26. Isaac was in a land experiencing famine. The economy was in crisis. The environment was not favorable. Yet verse 12 says, "Then Isaac sowed in that land, and received in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him." Do you see the power of this moment? Isaac didn't wait for conditions to change. He didn't look for a new job or relocate for better wages. He sowed, and he reaped, not just addition, but multiplication. The breakthrough didn't come because of a raise. It came because of a revelation. Seed will always outperform salary when it's placed in the right soil. God blesses what is sown, not just what is stored. Many people want increase, but are holding onto the very thing that must be released. A seed in your hand is limited, but a seed in the ground is pregnant with potential. That's why farmers don't eat all their corn. They separate seed from bread. Bread feeds you for a moment. Seed feeds you for a lifetime. You must begin to ask, what is my seed? For some, it's a skill. For others, it's an idea. It might be your time, your words, your gifts, or your relationships. Whatever it is, breakthrough comes when it is sown, not hoarded. Let's make this real. Chris was a corporate employee making $70,000 a year, comfortable but not free. He knew God had placed a creative gift in him, but fear and routine kept him in the system. One day, he heard a teaching on seed and was convicted. He decided to take a portion of his savings, not a massive amount, but enough to stretch him, and invested in starting a small digital product business based on his expertise. It was his seed. In 3 years, he built a stream of income that surpassed his salary, not by luck, not by chance, by seed. The secret wasn't the money, it was the mindset. He understood that salary keeps you predictable. Seed makes you powerful. It positions you to partner with divine multiplication. Luke 6:38 says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. That's not salary. That's seed economics. Seed also brings ownership. When you live on salary, someone else owns the soil. When you operate in seed, you become a cultivator, a builder, a steward. That's why wealthy people don't think in terms of income. They think in terms of assets, equity, and impact. They plant things that grow. They start ventures, invest in relationships, create systems, and leverage time. They are sowers, not just spenders, and don't miss this. Seed works in any economy. Seed is recession-proof. The economy can dip, but your seed can still grow because God is not bound by Wall Street or inflation rates. As long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest will not cease. Genesis 8:22. That means sowing is always in season, even when life isn't. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Some people say, I don't have enough to sow. But that's a deception. The widow in 1 Kings 17 only had a handful of flour and a little oil. Elijah asked for a cake first. That wasn't cruelty, that was kingdom. When she sowed, the flour never ran out and the oil never dried up. God sustained her through seed. What you think is too small is often just enough to unlock supernatural flow. Your salary might be fixed, but your seed can break the limits. That's why giving is not about charity. It's about alignment. When you sow into vision, into need, into kingdom purpose, into good soil, you activate spiritual laws that override natural constraints. Breakthrough comes to those who don't just work hard, but sow smart. Hard work is honorable, but without seed, it produces a cycle. Labor without leverage. You'll grind year after year and wonder why things aren't changing. Because the difference between a worker and a sower is this. The worker earns what he can reach. The sower reaps what he cannot contain. So examine your hands. Look at your time, your talents, your connections, your ideas. Identify your seed. Don't eat it. Don't waste it. Don't bury it. Sow it. Because God does not multiply what you withhold. He multiplies what you release. This is not motivation. This is a law, a truth, a key, and it will not unlock for you until you put it into practice. If your wall, it is going to shift, your sowing must shift first. We are living in a time where ownership, not labor, is the true pathway to financial freedom. For decades, we've been taught to work harder, climb the ladder, and depend on the system. But that ladder is leaning against a wall you don't own, and what you don't own, you can't control. If your wall, it is ever going to experience true breakthrough, you must move from employment to empowerment, and that happens through ownership. Let me explain the difference. Employment gives you a wage. Ownership gives you wealth. Employment rewards you for hours. Ownership rewards you for ideas. When you work for others, they determine your value. When you own, your value becomes unlimited because it's no longer capped by time. This principle is clearly seen in Scripture. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells the parable of the talents. The master gives one servant 5 talents, another 2, and another 1, each according to their ability. The first 2 servants doubled what they received and were praised, but the last servant buried his talent in the ground and returned it untouched. He didn't lose it, he just didn't multiply it. What was the result? The master rebuked him, took away what he had, and gave it to the one who multiplied. Why? Because heaven rewards stewardship, not safety. God is not looking for people who just preserve what they were given. He wants those who multiply what they've received, and that only happens through ownership. Let's bring this into modern terms. John and Marcus both earn $80,000 a year. John works a stable corporate job with benefits. Marcus owns a small logistics company. On the surface, they earn the same, but Marcus owns his system. He controls the contracts, the profits, and the ability to scale. John, on the other hand, is dependent on yearly reviews and someone else's evaluation of his worth. When a recession hits, John gets laid off, Marcus loses some contracts but restructures his operations. Within a year, Marcus rebounds stronger. John is still searching for another job. What made the difference? Ownership. Now, this doesn't mean everyone must quit their job today, but it does mean you must begin building something you own. While you earn, start developing a mindset that is not dependent on someone else's system for your provision. Ownership can take many forms. It could be a business, a product, intellectual property, content, real estate, licensing, or even a digital platform. The key is simple. If you can't pass it on, you don't own it. The truth is sobering. You can work 40 years and have nothing to show your children but a box of old pay stubs. Or you can spend 10 years building something that creates generational momentum. Psalm 112, 2-3 says, "His descendants will be mighty on earth. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Wealth and riches are in his house." That's legacy. That's ownership. Let's look at a real life example. Lisa was a high school teacher for 15 years, loved her job but felt stuck financially. She had a passion for curriculum development and began writing her own lesson plans for underfunded schools. At first, she gave them away. Then she started selling them online. Within 3 years, she had a thriving digital business selling educational resources. She was still teaching, but now she owned what she created. That ownership gave her freedom. And eventually, she left the classroom, not out of frustration but fulfillment. Your breakthrough is not in more hours, it's in more ownership. Stop trading time for money and start creating systems that work when you're sleeping. When you own something, it can appreciate. It can work without you. That's what Proverbs 13:22 means when it says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." Too many are afraid to own because ownership comes with responsibility. But fear is a tool used to keep you on the treadmill of survival. Break free from that. Ownership means making mistakes but learning from them. It means stepping out but never stepping back. It's the path from consumer to creator, from borrower to lender, from worker to kingdom builder. And here's the hard truth. If you don't own, someone owns you. You're trading your life's energy to build another man's dream. There's nothing wrong with starting there, but there's everything wrong with staying there when God has placed ideas, gifts, and solutions inside you. Even Jesus said in Luke 19:13, "Occupy till I come." The word occupy doesn't just mean stay busy. It means take dominion, take ownership, build, multiply, rule over your assignment, bring heaven's economic order to earth. This is not motivation. This is breakthrough. This is about unlocking the kingdom within you so you can stop renting your life and start owning your future. Your wall, it will never expand beyond what you're willing to take responsibility for, and ownership is the highest form of responsibility on earth. Breakthrough is not magic, it is management. It is not luck, it is discipline. Many people cry out for financial blessings, but heaven does not respond to desperation. It responds to stewardship. Wealth is not merely given, it is grown, and the soil where it grows best is discipline. Discipline is the invisible scaffolding of all visible wealth. Without it, increase becomes waste. Proverbs 21:20 gives us a sharp truth. The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down. Notice it doesn't say the fool doesn't receive, it says the fool consumes everything. Discipline is what separates consumption from construction. Let's look at a very real and relatable example. Imagine two individuals, Angela and Robert, both earn the same income, $5 per month. Angela creates a written plan for every dollar. She gives, she saves, she invests, and she lives below her means. She understands that delayed gratification is a secret weapon. She wears what she can afford and drives what gets her from A to B, not what gets her applause. Robert, on the other hand, makes emotional decisions. He buys to feel good. He eats out because it's convenient. He makes purchases to impress people who don't know him, using money he doesn't have. At the end of every month, he's broke, not because he didn't make enough, but because he didn't manage what he had. Fast forward 5 years. Angela has $40,000 invested, a 6-month emergency fund, and the beginnings of a rental property. Robert has debt, stress, and resentment, not because God favored one and ignored the other, but because one was disciplined and the other was distracted. Your wall, it does not break through because of what you make. It breaks through because of what you master, and self-mastery is the first realm of dominion God ever gave man. Before Adam was given dominion over animals or creation, he had to manage himself. He had to obey instruction. He had to exercise restraint. Let's not miss the kingdom principle. If you cannot master impulse, you cannot multiply increase. Discipline is choosing vision over emotion. It's refusing to spend what was meant to be sown. It's setting boundaries so your future can breathe. Most people are not poor because they lack income. They lack clarity and control. That's why God often tests us with little before trusting us with more. Luke 16:10 says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. If you waste the little, you'll mishandle the much. Let me give you a powerful truth. Wealth flows toward structure." That's why disciplined people attract opportunity. Investors look for systems, not emotion. Banks look at patterns, not prayer. Even God responds to order. When Jesus fed the 5,000, he first made the people sit down in group structure before the miracle was released. He won't multiply what you cannot manage. Discipline shows up in how you budget consistently, delay gratification, avoid emotional spending, track and review your finances, stick to a vision even when excitement fades. You need a budget, not as a restriction, but as a roadmap. A budget tells your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. It is a spiritual document, not just a financial one. It reflects stewardship, and stewardship is worship. Let's look at the Israelites in the wilderness. God provided manna every morning, daily bread, but he instructed them not to store more than they needed, except on the Sabbath. Those who ignored the discipline found worms in their hoarding. God was training them to trust, to obey, and to live within divine order. If you skip discipline, you skip destiny. Here's the key. Discipline is painful in the short term, but powerful in the long term. Hebrews 12:11 says, "No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace." The harvest always belongs to the disciplined. Let's be honest, discipline isn't glamorous. It doesn't always feel good, but emotions don't build empires, decisions do. The disciplined person turns their paycheck into a plan, their spending into strategy, and their budget into breakthrough. This is not motivation. This is God's economy. The enemy loves to see you impulsive and reactive because he knows discipline is a weapon. He knows when you develop financial discipline, you silence the devourer without saying a word. You cancel generational debt without begging. You break poverty cycles with structure, not shouting. Discipline doesn't deny you joy, it schedules your joy for longevity. You can enjoy life, but do it on purpose. Budget for rest, save for fun, plan for generosity. That's not bondage, that's wisdom. If you want a wallet that doesn't just survive but thrives, you must build a life of disciplined decisions, because breakthrough is never accidental, it's always intentional. God is not obligated to fund what he did not initiate. Heaven does not pour resources into illusions. It funds vision, and not just any vision, but a vision that aligns with kingdom principles, blesses others, and glorifies God. Your wallet may be struggling, not because of a lack of faith, but because of a lack of clarity. You don't need more money, you need more vision. Proverbs 29:18 declares, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." But let's flip that. Where there is vision, the people prosper. Vision gives direction, creates discipline, and attracts provision. Money follows vision like water flows downhill. But when there is no vision, money evaporates. It is wasted, misdirected, and mismanaged. The difference between vision and fantasy is responsibility. A fantasy is what you dream without planning. A vision is what you prepare to steward. Fantasies happen in the imagination. Vision happens in action. You may want a breakthrough, but do you have a written plan? Have you counted the cost? Have you sought wise counsel? Have you taken the first step, even if it's small? Let me give you a story. Cynthia had a dream to open a wellness studio in her city. She wanted to help people heal emotionally and physically through holistic therapy. She prayed, fasted, and asked others to sow into her dream. But for years, nothing happened. One day, during prayer, she felt a question stir in her heart. Where is the plan? Convicted, she began writing. She researched licensing. She studied competitors. She identified her niche. She built a financial forecast. She created a one-page summary of what, why, and how. 3 months later, she met a retired businesswoman at a conference. That woman read her proposal and said, "This is clear, it's needed, and I want to help fund it." A year later, her studio opened. The difference wasn't more prayer. It was vision, written, structured, and prepared. Habakkuk 2:2 says, "Write the vision and make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it." Clarity attracts runners, helpers, partners, investors, favor. God won't bless confusion, he blesses clarity. If your vision is foggy, your funding will be too. Many are praying for financial breakthrough, but are stuck in cycles because they haven't transitioned from dreamer to designer. A dream is important. It's the seed. But it must be developed. Luke 14:28 says, "Suppose one of you wants to build a tower, won't you first sit down and estimate the cost?" That's Jesus teaching business fundamentals. Even faith has a blueprint.